From time to time, you will see my friend David Simone drinking a glass of rum. Well, I cannot condone or approve of this behavior in the slightest. Because I'm a Scotch drinker. Scotch, Irish whiskey, and then second place is probably gin, and then vodka if I really have to. But rum. What are you, a pirate? Just teasing. Anyway, speaking of my friend David Simone, he has on several occasions asked me if I would upload a video about basically my spiritual journey. And, that's this video. So I kind of take exception with some of my fellow believers when they're talking about the demonic and horrible teaching of eternal torment. And they'll go, well, now let's be fair, because most of us, all of us believed this at one point in time. And I'm like, hey, whoa there, Punchy, speak for yourself. I never believed it. Okay. I wasn't raised in church. I can count all the times I've been in a church for service on one hand, and still probably have a finger or two left over. Now, that's church service. Now, weddings, that's a different story. And up until I moved, I actually voted in a church. So, I mean, not just being inside, but I mean being inside for service. So I wasn't raised that way. My mother had some bad experiences with organized religion by the time I was born. So she kept me away from church. What she did instead was, around the time I was, probably 5 years old or so, she started reading the Bible to me. And not just one Bible, but two Bibles. She would read, a few chapters out of the King James Version, and then she'd read the same chapters out of the Living Word Bible, it was called. Modern English, no these or thou shalt not, stuff like that. It was worded more like we talk in modern day. Anyway, but she would read to me, and then, afterwards we would discuss what was different, what was the same, and, what we could learn from that. And I think it went a long way to teach me critical thinking skills and reasoning and logic, doing it that way. So I was raised with the eventual salvation of all. That's what I mean. Of any other verse my mother drilled into my head when I was growing up, it was every knee shall bow, every knee shall bow, So I knew, and I would ask, well, what about the people that don't believe now? And she would answer, well, they're just going to have to realize the truth after they die, and come into the truth that way. She didn't articulate it maybe, as well as some of our fellow saints could have, but she at least knew the general gist of things. Well, Fast forward to elementary school. Well, when you're in elementary school, your peers are king, you know. So this was in, oh, probably, so I want to say second or third grade. So we're talking like 1982, 83, somewhere around there. And it was before class, and all of the students were standing around, you know, in little groups and whatever. And I came in, and this one group of kids, it was like 4 or 5 kids standing around talking. And I hear the conversation. They're talking about God and Jesus Christ. And I said, "Oh, hey, I know those guys. I love those guys. Okay, you know, they know these guys. Okay, we can talk about it." And I went up, and they talked for a few seconds, and then the one girl said, "Well, I'm so glad that I believe in Jesus, because I wouldn't want God to send me to hell forever." And if you know anything about me, you know that I cannot keep my mouth shut, especially when I am exposed to something that I can tell is bullshit. So I piped out, and I said, "God doesn't do that. Christ saved everybody." Oh my. If you could have only seen them. And these kids are the same age as me. They're like, you know, 7, 8 years old, whatever it is. And they just jumped up like this. It was like, have you ever seen, like, what are they? I think they're meerkats in Africa when something happens and they're like down in the brush, and they all stand up like that. Well, that's the way it was. They were standing while they were talking, but when I said that, they all just like this. He said, and they just all 4 or 5 of them, or however many there were, they all just started screaming in unison. "What do you mean God doesn't send people to hell? What do you think Christ died for?" You know, and I'm 7, 8 years old. You know, I'm thinking, you know, and no, we'll never forget this one girl looked at me and said, "If you don't believe that God sends people to hell to burn forever for not believing in Jesus, then you can't call yourself a Christian." Okay. If that's how you feel about it, okay. So, like I said, when you're that age, you're very impressionable, and you know your peers are just, you do not want to go against your peers. So when a child that age is exposed to something like that, the tendency is he's going to believe his peers, not his parents. Beg your pardon. But that's not quite what happened to me. I conceded that, well, if this is what this is 4 or 5 different people, and they're all telling me that what my mom taught me is garbage, is crap, they must be right, or you know, that at least must be what the world as a whole thinks what God is. But now some kids would say to themselves, "Well, I better start going to church and believe in this God, because I don't want to roast forever." But that's not what happened to me, because while I acknowledged that what my mom had taught me was nonsense, I it was like something flashed in my mind once she said, if you don't think God sends the people to hell forever for not believing in Jesus, then you can't call yourself a Christian. It's like at that moment, my mind said, "Oh, I get it. God is make believe. God's like the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or any number of those guys. You know, the Easter Bunny. That's God then, because even at that age of 8 years old, I still knew that you could not have a God who is love, who tortures people without mercy forever for the mistakes they made over a lifetime of, what, 70, 80 years? That did not make any logical sense, and I just rejected it outright. And I became an atheist on the spot. Although that's not really correct. I never really embraced atheism fully. I was an agnostic, but a lot more people know what an atheist is than what an agnostic is. So if people would ask me, "Oh, I'm an atheist," okay. But I always believed in something higher, and that this universe is way too perfect to not be created, to not be designed. So, I had that, but I could not believe in the hypocritical Christian monster God that everybody believed in. So, and oftentimes when people would ask me, they'd say, "Do you believe in God?" I'd say, "Yes, I do. I don't believe in your God, though." So, which was pretty accurate. So fast forward to 2013. I was in a bad situation with my ex-wife. Long story short, she had just come out of rehab after being in for 30 days when she was supposed to be in for 90. Anyway, she comes home, decides that she's going to whip a little old-time religion on her 12 or 13-year-old stepdaughter. And I remember her telling her, "Now, when you pray, you have to ask God to forgive you, because if you don't, He's not going to forgive you." And this rage inside me just boiled over. And then, never overflowed, but just boiled up. And I got so angry, didn't say anything. I said, "This is such fucking bullshit, man. Why do people believe this fucking shit?" So I got on the phone. I think I got on my phone while she was saying that. And I typed in, I don't know why I typed it in this way, but I typed in the pagan doctrine of the pagan doctrine of hell. And the first thing I clicked on was this video series by this guy. If I recall correctly, his name is Rob Pike. And the video series was called Eternal Torment, Not from a Loving God. Well, that introduced me to Universalism, and I got involved with that, called myself a Christian Universalist for several years before I got really detailed into it and understood the gospel of grace and what Paul was all about and all that. So anyway, and after I started researching this stuff in 2013, this is funny. Is that I had to say, "Well, gee, who would have known that my dumb old mom was right all the time?" I tell her that, and it cracks her up. So anyway, that's how I came to the truth. I God mercifully kept me out of organized religion, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful that I didn't have to unlearn anything. I didn't have to. Uh, this truth didn't have to permeate layers and layers of brainwashing in order to get to me. And when you see the gospel for what it is and the absolute completeness of the cross, it's like I don't know if you've ever seen those sculptures that artists do where there's just like a bunch of junk hanging down from like wires and shit, and it looks like a mess. But when you look at it at this one angle, everything lines up, and it's just oh, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that all those parts that weren't related were actually related and tied together. That's what it is when you apprehend the gospel of grace the way it's intended. Everything just lines up, and you just go, oh, okay, this part's for this is what happened at the cross, and this is going to save everybody here, but then these people are going to have to go through judgment here, and it just it's very liberating. But anyway, yeah, that's my story, and thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you sometime soon. Cheers.